For 4 minutes in 1964, the ground beneath Alaska didn't just shake. One island rose nearly 40 feet. A town 30 miles away dropped low enough for the tide to start claiming it. By the time the shaking stopped, an entire scientific theory was already obsolete. This was the Good Friday earthquake, magnitude 9.2, the second most powerful ever recorded. It's also the event that finally proved continents don't sit still. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly how one afternoon in Alaska, at 5:36 in the evening on March 27th, a fault deep beneath Prince William Sound let go. For nearly 4.5 minutes, the ground in south-central Alaska didn't just tremble, it flowed. Wet soil turned to slurry beneath entire neighborhoods, a process called liquefaction. When the shaking finally stopped, the coastline itself had changed. Some areas had risen by as much as 38 feet. Others had sunk by up to 8 feet. Parts of the ground had also shifted sideways, by 60 feet or more. Nobody in 1964 had a theory that could explain all three of those movements happening at once. At the time, most geologists believed in contraction theory. The idea was that Earth was slowly cooling and shrinking. It wrinkled like a dried apple, forming mountains and ocean basins. In that picture, crust could only move up or down, like a piston. It was a tidy explanation, right up until Alaska's coastline moved in 3 directions at once. Something in every geology textbook was wrong, and the man who would prove it was already on his way to the wreckage. USGS geologist George Plafker walked the coastline for months. He used barnacle lines on the rocks as a natural tide gauge that let him measure exactly how far the land had risen or sunk. He logged hundreds of measurements across an area of 200,000 square miles. A clear pattern emerged. One long band of uplift ran along the coast, paired with a parallel band of subsidence further inland. Only one explanation fit. The Pacific seafloor was sliding beneath North America, along a fault tilted gently into the earth. It had been locked in place for centuries, storing up strain like a held-down spring. In 1964, it finally let go. Plafker had just described what scientists now call a megathrust earthquake. His work didn't just explain Alaska. It became some of the strongest field evidence for the still-developing theory of plate tectonics. It proved continents were riding on plates that collide, slide, and dive beneath each other. The same subduction process under Alaska also drives the volcanoes and earthquakes around the entire Pacific Ring of Fire. More than 60 years later, scientists are still using those lessons. Researchers studying the Pacific Northwest, Japan, and Chile still look at Prince William Sound. They're using it to forecast where the next megathrust quake might strike. So the next time the ground feels solid beneath you, remember Alaska. 4 minutes was all it took to prove our planet's crust never really stops moving. If you want more stories about the planet rewriting its own rules, stick around. There's plenty more where this one came from.